Glass slipped from small hands and shattered on floor. In that same instant, child's bare foot was struck by sharp piece and blood-stained living room's light marble. Was only 6 years old, but instead of receiving help, heard screams hurting more than cut. Stepmother, with hard face and cold gaze, pointed finger and spat words of contempt. Crying, Sophia tried to justify herself. Didn't mean to. Was accident. But tears only increased fury of woman, who forced her to crawl to heavy curtain and press face against fabric as punishment. There, hidden in shadow, foot throbbing and heart oppressed, child sobbed alone and nobody appeared to defend her, until suddenly sound of main door resonated through house. Firm footsteps crossed hallway and masculine voice called her name. Was Millionaire father who'd returned earlier than expected. What saw upon entering froze heart. Daughter bleeding, wife screaming. Then, in single shout, said phrase that plunged entire mansion into silence. Here begins our story. Miller House was in Oak Ridge, place of wide streets and mansions with impeccable gardens. Outside, everything seemed perfect, but inside that house, luxury was just facade. Sophia Miller, 6 years old, lived surrounded by expensive furniture, tall windows and hallways resonating with each step, but didn't feel human warmth. Father, Jonathan, spent most time traveling for business. Mother, only memory of affection she had died when she was still baby. 5 months before, Jonathan had remarried. New wife, Victoria, arrived with promises of care and tenderness. At wedding, stroked child's hair and called her my sweet girl. For few weeks, Sophia believed would finally have mother to hug her, but enough for routine to resume for mask to fall. What city are you watching this video from, and what time is it? By the way, if you're enjoying my videos, I'd be so happy if you could subscribe to my channel and like this video. If this scene has moved you, subscribe to channel now. This was just first twist, and what comes after will be even more intense. When Jonathan was absent, Victoria showed cruel side, impatient, arrogant, and incapable of looking at stepdaughter without contempt. Sophia, despite being so small, tried to please her in every possible way. Picked up toys, spoke in low voice, even risked washing glasses or setting table. In her head, maybe if I'm perfect, stepmother will accept me. But each attempt ended with error amplified into accusation. And that afternoon, simple gesture of washing glass became another scene of humiliation. Contrast was painful. Enormous living room seemed made to display power, not to welcome child. Heavy curtains hid light and house's silence only interrupted by sound of stepmother's heels resonating on floor. In background, blood's reflection mixed with broken glass, as if house itself recorded cruelty of that moment. Leaning against curtain, Sophia cried silently. Wasn't just pain of cut making her tremble. What really hurt was believing problem was in her. That if had been more careful, more obedient, more perfect, perhaps would have been loved. With each falling tear, repeated in mind, just wanted her to love me. That was Sophia's world. Luxurious home, but empty of affection. Child needing care, but only receiving contempt. Father who loved her, but wasn't present enough to see what happened when door closed. Everything seemed condemned to continue like that until that day, when sound of door opening changed everything. Mansion door opened with deep creak, breaking room's loaded silence. Sound of footsteps resonated on marble floor, firm, rhythmic, different from any other house had known. Jonathan Miller had just returned from long business trip, still dressed in dark suit and holding in hand white teddy bear just bought at airport. Was his way of compensating absence, gifts trying to fill days when wasn't there. But in that instant, gift fell from hand before even reaching daughter. What saw froze heart? Sophia, small and trembling, was leaning against curtain, face wet with tears and foot stained with blood. Before her, Victoria, wife he'd chosen to believe was companion and substitute mother, raised accusing finger and threw cutting words bouncing through room. Silence that followed was heavy as stone. Jonathan let teddy bear roll to armchair and advanced few steps, breath trapped in chest. Voice hoarse from travel exploded in tone never used inside own house. Enough, word resonated like thunder. Contained rage, shock, and pain mixed in shout, instantly silencing room. Even Victoria stopped, surprised by husband's cutting tone. Sophia, frightened, ran into arms, curling against chest as if had found only safe place in entire world. Jonathan crouched and passed hand over cut on daughter's foot. Blood was superficial, but what really hurt was realizing was an isolated accident. Child's fearful look isn't built in one day. Was fear accumulated over months, perhaps more? She's just child. Voice sounded low but loaded with fury. Only 6 years old. Victoria tried to regain composure, crossing arms and forcing calm tone not fitting with venom of seconds before. Don't understand, Jonathan. Needs to learn limits. If keep spoiling her, will never grow. Just teaching her. But Sophia, face buried in father's chest, murmured between sobs. Was my fault. I broke glass. Didn't want to anger Mom. Jonathan felt heartbreaking hearing term mom used with such desperation, as if child still begged for affection not existing. Pressed her tighter against him and raised eyes to wife. Don't dare call that teaching, said each word coming out like knife. What I've seen here is cruelty. Victoria responded with bitter, brief laugh sounding more like mockery than defense. But behind mask eyes gleamed with something more dangerous than simple fury, was wounded pride. Resentment about to become something bigger. Jonathan knew deep down that night changed everything. There was no longer way to close eyes again. Role of husband clashed directly with that of father, and choice could no longer be postponed. While lifting Sophia in arms and carrying her to sofa, mind worked at full speed. Thought about how many times had ignored subtle signals, how many times had preferred to believe Victoria's sweet mask instead of questioning. Now, before wounded and crying daughter, truth imposed itself like weight impossible to deny. Outside, strong wind hit windows, making curtains move like living shadows. Atmosphere seemed to announce this was just beginning of much larger storm. Jonathan breathed deeply, trying to keep voice from trembling when whispered in daughter's ear. Now I'm here. Nobody will hurt you again. But even saying that knew wasn't enough to be there one night. Would have to make decisions changing course of their lives. Quiet life, endless travels, marriage seeming to keep family in order. Everything was about to collapse. And on other side of room, Victoria watched in silence, didn't respond anything more, only cast cold, penetrating look, as if already planning next move. House seemed heavier that night. Jonathan settled Sophia on sofa, trying to stop bleeding from foot with clean cloth, but child's eyes trembled as if fearing something much bigger than blood. Was fear accumulated over months, type of fear not cured only with bandages. In hallway, Victoria watched in silence, arms crossed and lips curved in half-smile sounding more like provocation. When he looked at her expecting some sign of repentance, she only muttered with disdain, "Don't know even half," and disappeared upstairs, leaving trail of sweet perfume mixed with venom of words. Jonathan breathed deeply. For first time felt could no longer postpone it. Wife's double life was no longer doubt, was threat. While trying to calm daughter, recent memories came to mind. Cold looks, forced excuses, trips when had chosen not to see what had before eyes. Now each of Sophia's silences screamed like confession. Next morning, doorbell rang. Was Eleanor Brooks, middle-aged neighbor who always appeared discreetly with box of cookies. This time, however, eyes were different, firm, almost distressed. "Mr. Miller, shouldn't meddle, but I've seen too many things. Saw your daughter kneeling in garden in full cold. Saw Mrs. Blake screaming at her until losing voice. Stayed silent from fear but can't stay silent anymore." Words hit Jonathan like knives. Thanked her, but weight of guilt crushed him. How hadn't noticed before? How had left own daughter exposed for so long? While talking, Sophia appeared behind father, hugging white teddy bear against chest. Looked at Eleanor with fragile shyness and asked in almost inaudible voice, "You also think I'm bad girl?" Eleanor knelt and took child's hands. Voice trembled but didn't waver. "No, sweetheart. You're not to blame for anything. Mistake was never yours." Spark of hope gleamed in Sophia's eyes, but at same time shadow of uncertainty still pursued her. How to believe in affection after so many days of cruel silence. That afternoon, while Jonathan reviewed papers in office, found something freezing blood. Anonymous note slipped under door. Hard, cold letters, handwritten, "Don't lose girl or you'll regret it." Raised eyes and looked at window hitting with wind. For first time realized mansion, so protected by fences, alarms, and walls, wasn't impenetrable. Someone from outside already knew too much. Jonathan folded paper with trembling hands and hid in pocket. In room, Sophia drew in silence, scribbling dark curtain and behind it 2 eyes. Father observed that drawing and felt heart shrinking. Even childish strokes revealed invisible prison child carried with her. World was no longer safe, neither inside house nor outside it. And Jonathan knew next decision could save everything or lose everything. And you, in Jonathan's place, what would you do? Have you ever lived situation where realized danger too late? Tell here in comments. Would love to know your opinion. Night seemed heavier than all others. Outside, wind swept garden, bending branches as if whispering warning. Inside mansion, wall clock marked 10:59. Needles slid slowly, each second stretched like rope about to break. Jonathan settled Sophia in office armchair. Yellow lamplight bathed child's pale face, who squeezed teddy bear so hard fingers turned white. He leaned and said in low voice, "Remember what we agreed? When I say lights on, breathe with me. 1, 2, 3, up to 10. Sophia nodded with wide eyes, reflecting mix of fear and trust. In garden, shadows moved between bushes. 3 figures crossed lawn with agility of those knowing terrain. Richard Hale went ahead with corpulent body and heavy breathing. Behind him, Melissa with light steps and fixed gaze, and bit further back, Victoria, with hood lowered to forehead and mouth contracted in silent expression of rage. Back door latch gave dry click, almost imperceptible sound, but made Sophia shrink even more in chair. Jonathan didn't move muscle, only slid hand under table and pressed hidden button. Figures advanced through hallway. Silence was so dense, floors creaking seemed like thunder. Richard raised hand, signaling count with fingers. 3, 2, 1. Pushed office door. Scene seemed calm. Father and daughter together, 1 lamp lit, nothing more. But when hand extended to touch child's shoulder, Jonathan raised eyes. Firm gaze, loaded with contained fury, met intruders. Lights on. Suddenly, entire mansion illuminated. Garden spotlights lit lawn as if were day. Muffled sirens cut air, and before Richard could retreat, powerful voices resonated in hallway. Police! Nobody move! Chaos took over place. Floor trembled with tactical team's footsteps bursting into house. Richard tried to run but was knocked against carpet, handcuffs clicking on wrists. Melissa backed toward kitchen, hand reaching into purse, but female agent intercepted with weapon raised. Drop it now. She obeyed, eyes sparkling with hatred as metallic object fell to floor. Victoria remained paralyzed for second, eyes fixed on Sophia. Then, like cornered animal, tried to run toward half-open window. But Maria Santos's figure, firm and silent, intercepted with quick blow, immobilizing her against wall. It's over. Victoria! Stepmother's scream resonated sharp. Breaking air. You'll regret this, Jonathan, I swear. But there was no longer power in that voice, only shattered rancor. Sophia, frightened, tried to count breaths as rehearsed. 1, 2, 3. But tears blurred numbers and she only clung to father. Jonathan wrapped her in arms, bending body over hers, as if could be wall against any storm. Flashlight gleam swept walls, handcuffs tinkled, screams mixed with police orders. Amid all that, Jonathan's heart beat like drum. There were no longer doubts or illusions. Had reached limit, and from that moment, life wouldn't be same again. When sirens finally turned off, only heavy silence of illuminated room remained. Sophia raised tearful eyes toward father, as if seeking confirmation it truly ended. He breathed deeply, took daughter's face with both hands and whispered, "It's over, my love. You're safe." But inside knew there was no turning back. Their lives had crossed line never could be erased. If this twist moved you as much as me writing it, give video like now. Shows you're feeling it with us, and helps us bring more stories like this. Sound of handcuffs and commanding voices dissipated little by little, until only distant echo of sirens crossing mansion door remained. Intense lights that minutes before had transformed night into day now seemed too cruel on Sophia's pale face. Jonathan stood slowly, still with daughter pressed against chest, as if feared releasing her and everything happening again. Carpet was marked by police officers' boots, and air carried that metallic smell only appearing after much tension. Sweat, fear, and dust raised in seconds of chaos. Amid all that, child's labored breathing still marked room's rhythm. Jonathan separated her enough to see tearful eyes. "It's over," he said, but own voice sounded fragile. as if not sure. Sophia didn't respond, only hid face in curve of father's neck, seeking their refuge no wall or lock could offer. Body trembled in silent waves, as if each muscle still remembered threat. Maria Santos, detective, approached slowly. Firm gaze from before now had touch of contained compassion. "Needs immediate attention, not just physical," said, looking directly at Jonathan. "What happened today leaves marks, not just on her." He nodded but couldn't respond. Knot in throat was too big. In that instant felt something also breaking inside him. Wasn't just destroyed trust in wife, but weight of realizing for years had chosen work instead of being present. That empty space had allowed fear to occupy daughter's life. With almost ritual movements, Jonathan picked up white teddy bear lying beside armchair and put in Sophia's hands. Child squeezed it as if were second skin. Contrast was cruel. Clean white toy, and foot still marked by cut and dried blood. "Everything's going to be okay." Voice sounded low, broken but full of timid hope. Jonathan took time to respond, felt weight of each word before pronouncing, "Yes, because won't leave you alone ever again." Outside, wind swept garden carrying away last echoes of confrontation. Inside, silence was almost whisper. Maria withdrew, leaving only last instruction. "Tomorrow I'll start preparing report, but today just stay together." Door closed and emptiness took over room. Jonathan walked toward sofa with daughter in arms, though she had aged to walk alone. Sat, settled her in arms and let time pass without hurry. There were no questions, no plans, only feeling something had ended and something else still unnamed was beginning. For a few minutes, mansion seemed different. Tall walls and heavy curtains no longer imposed power, now seemed witnesses of secret uncovered. Sophia, with head resting on father's chest, closed eyes slowly. Didn't fall asleep immediately. Body was still alert but released sigh of exhaustion. Jonathan, for his part, kept gaze fixed on any point on wall. Mind wandered. Memories of deceased wife, images of daughter as baby, promises never fulfilled. Night's weight plunged him into silence. Was no longer man who'd left on trip carrying only contracts and numbers. Was father marked by urgency to repair irreparable. On floor, between still scattered fragments of broken glass, was puddle of dried blood. Jonathan saw it and felt as if were mirror. Invisible scar wouldn't disappear even after cleaning. Then leaned, kissed daughter's forehead and whispered, "You're all I have." Sound of wind on windows seemed to respond, bringing freshness of dawn announcing different day. But neither knew yet how that tomorrow would be. If this part has truly moved you, show your support. Subscribe to channel if haven't yet, and if already part of our family, consider leaving super thanks. This gesture helps us keep bringing stories as intense as this. Morning in Oak Ridge arrived without hurry. For first time in long while, mansion didn't wake with screams or hurried steps in hallways, but with soft clinking of cutlery in kitchen. Jonathan served coffee while observing Sophia at table, drawing in new notebook. Wound on foot was already covered with bandage, but was in eyes where greatest change showed. Still was shadow, yes, but also was gleam of light, like someone beginning to believe can live without fear. He approached, put cup before her, and pulled out chair. Silence that before was suffocating now seemed different. Silence of reconstruction, where each small gesture had weight. Sophia raised eyes, and with timid smile showed drawing. White bear standing before open door from which golden light emerged. Jonathan breathed deeply and understood without need for explanations. That door was promise home would no longer be same. Life didn't resolve overnight. Marks were still there. Memories of screams, distrust appearing each time wind hit window hard, fear past would return. But there was also something else. Certainty now there was someone willing to protect, listen, and be present. Jonathan was no longer just absent father, but man transformed by responsibility before tried to avoid. Perhaps that's what hardest stories remind us. Can't erase scars, but can transform them into starting points. What matters isn't perfection, but presence. Isn't promising nothing bad will happen, but firmly holding hand of who needs it when night comes. Days turned into weeks. House that once seemed mausoleum full of shadows slowly transformed. Windows that before only let in cold light now opened to morning breeze. Rooms echoing with heavy silence began filling with small conversations, hesitant laughs, sounds of normalcy. Sophia continued therapy. Sessions that before were obligation became space of genuine progress. Child psychologist Dr. Morrison visited house twice a week, brought toys, patience, and warm smile, reminding Sophia not all adults were threats. Together worked through trauma. Nothing rushed, nothing forced. Just healing for sake of healing. Jonathan changed too. Man who before hid behind contracts and business trips, now organized schedule around daughter. Mornings began with breakfast together. He learned to prepare pancakes way Sophia liked, with maple syrup and strawberries. Learned to listen to silences, understand gestures, read emotions in daughter's eyes. Learned being father meant being present in small moments, tying shoelaces, braiding hair, sitting on floor to play with dolls. One afternoon, while Sophia drew on living room floor, Jonathan sat on carpet beside her. Wasn't distant observation of busy father checking task completion. Was present. Attentive presence of father discovering daughter crayon by crayon. When she finished small drawing, house with sun and 2 figures holding hands, he felt lump in throat. "Is beautiful," he said, voice full of emotion. Sophia turned toward him, eyes gleaming. "It's us, Dad. You and me." Jonathan picked up drawing as if were most precious treasure. Tears came, but weren't tears of pain, were tears of something being healed, slowly but surely. They spoke about mother that evening. For first time since death, Jonathan didn't avoid subject. Shared memories. How she laughed, how filled house with warmth, how loved Sophia with every fiber of being. "She would want you to be happy," Jonathan said, holding daughter's hands. "Would want us both to be happy." Sophia nodded, squeezing father's hands. "I'm trying, Dad." "I know, sweetheart. And I'm here. This time I'm really here." Legal process regarding Victoria was lengthy. Police investigation revealed extent of abuse. Medical records showing unexplained injuries. Eleanor's testimony about what witnessed. Psychological evaluation confirming emotional trauma. Victoria was charged with child abuse, conspiracy to commit kidnapping, and emotional cruelty. Richard and Melissa faced similar charges plus breaking and entering. Jonathan hired best lawyer could find, not for revenge but to ensure daughter's safety. Restraining orders were issued. All 3 were forbidden from approaching Sophia or Jonathan. Trial dates were set, but for Sophia, legal justice was secondary. What mattered was daily healing. Mornings without fear, nights without nightmares, moments of genuine peace. House underwent changes too. Jonathan removed heavy curtains, keeping rooms dark, hired interior designer to make spaces brighter, more welcoming. Sophia's room was repainted in soft lavender she chose herself. New bed, new furniture, new beginning. Teddy bear remained though, sitting on pillow like guardian of memories both painful and precious. One evening, several months after that terrible night, they had visitor. Eleanor Brooks came for tea, bringing homemade cookies, had become trusted friend, someone Sophia felt safe around. They shared meal, stories, gentle laughter. House that once knew only tension now hosted warmth. After tea, Eleanor asked Sophia to show drawings. Sophia looked at father, seeking permission, reassurance. He nodded encouragingly. She ran to room and returned with stack of papers, colorful drawings of flowers, rainbows, and always, always 2 figures holding hands. Eleanor had tears in eyes. "She's healing," whispered to Jonathan. "Can see it in art. Fear is fading, hope is growing." Jonathan's chest swelled with emotion. And Sophia, for first time in so long, felt something she'd almost forgotten, felt worthy. Felt loved, felt whole. As guests left and evening settled, Jonathan helped Sophia prepare for bed. Routine they'd developed over months. Comfortable, filled with small moments of connection. "Dad?" Sophia said as he tucked a blanket around her. "Yes, sweetheart?" "Thank you for saving me." Jonathan felt throat tighten. Knelt beside bed, took her hand. "You saved yourself, Sophia. You were brave enough to hold on, to let me see truth. I was just too blind to see until almost too late. But you saw eventually. That's what matters." He kissed her forehead. "Love you so much. We'll spend rest of life making up for time I wasn't there. You're here now. That's enough." After she fell asleep, Jonathan stood in doorway watching her peaceful breathing, thought about how close had come to losing her completely, how Victoria's cruelty could have destroyed this precious child. But also thought about resilience, Sophia's incredible strength, capacity to survive, to hope, to heal. Now I want to speak to you who stayed with me until here. Have you ever carried silence too heavy in your house? Have you ever felt you needed someone simply to be there without asking anything in return? If so, this story is also yours. Because deep down, we all have piece of Sophia inside us. That part just needing care to smile again. And perhaps you also carry piece of Jonathan inside. That part needing to wake up, assume role, change path before it's too late. If this story reached you, don't keep it just for yourself. Subscribe to channel, share it, and if you can, support with super thanks. These gestures are way to keep flame alive. To show stories like this matter, don't go unnoticed. Thank you from heart for watching until end. Stories like this aren't easy to tell but are necessary, because remind us however long night may be, always exists possibility of turning on light. And if you've reached here, it's because this story touched something inside you. Then stay with me. Watch next video too. Who knows? Perhaps it will also find your heart exactly where you are now.